Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Paso Robles City Council meeting for Tuesday, September the 20th. Mayor Steve Martin speaking. Before we get started, I'd like to read the following. City has returned to hybrid public meetings pursuant to AB 361, which allows for a deviation from the teleconference rules required by the Ralph M. Brown Act. Residents now have the option to attend the meeting in person or to participate remotely. To participate remotely, residents can listen to the meeting live on the radio at 12:30 a.m. or live stream the meeting at www.prcity.com/YouTube and call 805-865-7276 to provide public comment via phone. The phone line will open just prior to the start of the meeting and remain open throughout the meeting to ensure the opportunity to comment on each item heard by the council. Written public comments can be submitted via email to cityclerk@prcity.com prior to 12 noon on the day of the council meeting to be posted as an addendum to the agenda. If submitting written comments in advance of the meeting, please note the agenda item by number or name. City council meetings will be live streamed during the meeting and also available to play later on YouTube by accessing the following link, www.prcity.com/YouTube. And with that, I will call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call.
Councilmember Walsh.
Present.
Councilmember Gregory.
Councilmember Gregory just entered the room.
Councilmember Gregory?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Strong.
Here.
And Mayor Martin.
Here. All council members being present, the first item on our agenda tonight is closed session. I'll ask the city attorney to brief us on what we'll be discussing during that session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll be going into closed session under one item. It's conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. Your city negotiators are City Manager Lewis and the Director of Administrative Services, Ryan Cornell. The employee organizations that we'll be negotiating with are the International Association of Firefighters, Paso Robles Police Officers Association, Service Employees International Union, unrepresented management, including among others, city manager, assistant city manager, and department heads, unrepresented part-time employees.
Thank you. There are no members of the public present to offer public comment. Do we have anyone waiting online?
No, sir.
We have no public comment on the closed session items. Therefore, with the council's permission, we will recess to closed session. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Paso Robles City Council meeting for Tuesday, September the 20th. Mayor Steve Martin speaking. We invite you to join us for this evening's meeting, and we will ask you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilman Chris Bausch.
Please rise. Face the colors. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have anyone here for the invocation tonight? Welcome.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Let us pray. This evening we pray that our loving, life-giving, and liberating God, the source of wisdom and understanding, be present with the city council members, city staff, and the people of Paso Robles as we meet to discuss and make decisions for our city. Help us in all things to seek your guidance to perceive what is right for the people of Paso Robles, and grant us all the courage to pursue it and the grace to accomplish it. We pray also tonight for the people of Puerto Rico and all those affected by Hurricane Fiona, that God's hand of consolation and healing may be with them. Amen.
May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Bausch.
Present.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Strong.
Yes, present.
Mayor Martin.
Here. All council present. Councilman Hammond is joining us telephonically tonight. At this time, we'd like to take a few moments to go around the room, introduce people who are employed by the city, others who may be members of advisory committees, so we know who does the business of the community. If you fit that description, we invite you to rise, state your name, and tell us your affiliation, and we'll be happy to welcome you. On my right.
Warren Frace, Community Development Director.
Melissa Boyer, City Clerk, joined by Shauna Howenstein, Civic Engagement Coordinator, and Karen Jackson, IT Technician.
Good evening, Jennifer Bradley, CFD and Public Finance Legal Counsel for the city.
Christopher Lucco, Utilities Director.
Edith Esperanza, Capital Projects Engineer. Monica Fortin, Director. Shannon Papp, HR Risk Manager.
Brian Cornell, Administrative Services Director.
Peter Berman,
David Carl, Interim Public Works Ops.
Ty Lewis, City Manager.
Elizabeth Hall, City Attorney.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else online from staff? Oh, we have one more person in the room.
Services Manager.
Thank you. Didn't mean to overlook you. Anyone else online?
No, sir.
Thank you. And I was remiss. I did not introduce the person delivering our invocation tonight. It was Reverend Barbara Miller from St. James Episcopal Church. I apologize. Thank you for being with us. Prior to this regular meeting, we had an announced closed session meeting of the Paso Robles City Council. I'll ask the city attorney to please give us a report on any reportable action from that session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We went into closed session on one item. It was conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. City negotiators were City Manager Lewis and Director of Administrative Services Ryan Cornell. The employee organizations included the International Association of Firefighters, Paso Robles Police Officers Association, Service Employees International Union, Unrepresented Management, and Unrepresented Part-Time Employees, and there was no reportable action.
Thank you for that. Starting off our regular agenda tonight, we have several presentations. First, I'd like to invite Maria Garcia to come forward. Long time to see. Maria is testing. Maria is a former council person with our city, and we are here to recognize her contributions to the city of Paso Robles this evening. This is a proclamation honoring Maria Garcia for her service to Paso Robles as a city council member. Whereas Maria was elected at large to the City Council in November of 2018, becoming just the third woman in city history to serve on the council and the first elected since 1984, and served as the District 2 representative since the city transitioned to a by-district council election in 2019 until leaving office in 2022. Whereas prior to her election to City Council, Maria was president of the Hispanic Community Foundation and eventually helped found the Hispanic Business Association in 2011. In her time as president of the HBA, she helped award many students with scholarships, helped business owners succeed, and assisted the Mexican consulate on local issues. Whereas Maria's time in the Paso Robles community and on City Council was distinguished by her commitment to economic and business development for all, public safety, affordable housing, equitable representation, and raising the profile of the Hispanic community. Whereas in 2017, she was nominated for Woman of the Year by the County of San Luis Obispo Commission on the Status of Women for her work in the Paso Robles community. And whereas during her tenure on the council, Maria volunteered for liaison positions with Community Action Partnership of SLO, Downtown Paso Robles Main Street Association, Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, and the Paso Robles Housing Authority, along with alternate liaison positions with the Chamber of Commerce, the Board of Directors, Economic Vitality Corporation, Homeless Services Oversight Committee, Library Board of Trustees, and the Youth Commission. And whereas Maria served Paso Robles with passion, commitment, compassion, and quiet determination, and her voice on the council will surely be missed. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Stephen W. Martin, by virtue of the authority vested in me as council, as the mayor of Paso Robles, and speaking on behalf of the entire city council, do hereby recognize and commend Ms. Maria Garcia for her contributions to the Paso Robles community in her role as city council member from 2018 to 2022. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you so much. I am not going to cry, but I just want to say thank you. First of all, it was everything that Mr. Martin just read. It seemed like a lot, but actually when you're passionate about a community and when you have your whole heart in it, it doesn't seem like you're actually doing so much because it's a part of who you are. And I did all that because I do love this community. And it was easy for me to give to someone that was in need and appreciated all of that. A lot of people always ask me, Maria, how do you do it all? How do you work 3 jobs and do all these commissions? Well, when it's a part of you and when you have such a great community that welcomes you with open arms, it's easy to do it. It's very easy. And I am going to miss it, but I am not going very far. I'm going to continue working with the Hispanic Business Association. I've been working with Paul Sloan on the economic part of it, and we're doing some great strides with some rural innovation and tech corridors. So I'm really excited to march on into something new. I also have a certificate here for the city of Paso Robles. So if you'll hold this.
Turnabout is fair play.
So I have a certificate here from the Mexican consulate, and it is to, they are proudly to present this certificate of recognition to the city of Paso Robles for inspiring and highlighting contributions made by the Latino and Mexican community by enhancing and connecting the diverse, multiracial, and multicultural mosaic of cultures. They appreciate everything that you do for the Hispanic community just by recognizing us and appreciating us. Thank you so much.
Not sure who gets the next one. Oh, Maria. I think I have more work for you up here. We're playing tag. This is a proclamation declaring September 15th through October 15th Hispanic Heritage Month. Whereas National Hispanic Heritage Month has been celebrated in the United States annually since 1988, when President Reagan expanded the week-long celebration, first established by President Johnson in 1968, into a 30-day period starting on September 15th, ending on October 15th. Whereas September 15th is significant because it is the anniversary of independence for the Latin American countries of Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, followed by Mexico on September 16th and Chile on September the 18th. Whereas this year's theme, Unidos, Inclusivity for a Stronger Nation, encourages us to ensure that all voices are represented and welcome to help build stronger communities and a stronger nation. Whereas the City of El Paso Robles recognizes that Hispanic heritage is American heritage and that this is a time to celebrate and honor the culture and heritage of those whose ancestors were indigenous to North America, as well as those who came from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, Central America, and South America. Whereas Hispanic residents represent 37% of the population and significantly contribute to the social fabric that makes the City of Paso Robles a vibrant and prosperous community for all. Whereas Hispanic Heritage Month is a time to recognize the invaluable and countless ways Hispanic residents contribute to our common goals and to making El Paso de Robles a better place to live, work, and play. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Stephen W. Martin, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor, speaking on behalf of the entire Paso Robles City Council, do hereby proclaim the 30-day period starting on September 15th, ending on October 15th, as Hispanic Heritage Month, and recommend that all citizens of the City of Paso Robles join in recognizing the importance of this month. Thank you again, Maria. Mr. Land. Welcome. This is Jeffrey Land. This is everybody. This is a proclamation honoring Jeffrey Land as SLO County Teacher of the Year. Whereas Jeffrey Land, Social Studies teacher at Paso Robles High School, has been chosen as the County Teacher of the Year by the San Luis Obispo County Office of Education. Whereas Jeff Land has been a Social Studies teacher for the past 25 years. He is a teacher with a true record of student devotion, concrete campus impact, and lasting influence. Boundless energy, intelligence, wit, creativity, and humility typify Land's remarkable presence. He is unmatched in creating significant, inclusive student events that spotlight relevant cultural concerns and safely give students a voice. Whereas students in his classes credit him with boosting their sense of identity and their faith that they can make a difference in the world by listening, organizing, and speaking for change. Land modeled these ideals when he gracefully lobbied across multiple Board of Trustees meetings for an ethnic studies elective course, as he was convinced that students wanted and needed a fair chance to examine inequalities latent in our culture and to study sources not found in traditional coursework. Whereas Land's dedication to Paso Robles High School shows in the plethora of his roles: activities director, ACT Club advisor, department chair, global environmental options class trip leader, faculty band leader. He plays almost every instrument. Says so right here. And faculty compliments leader. Jeff led the Williams Wing renaming campaign in honor of his beloved colleague Greg Williams. He was a founding planner of the Paso Robles High School Field Studies Collaborative, a 5-spoked program sending students to work and science-based projects with professors and field experts to places such as Santa Cruz, Joshua Tree, and more. Land's teaching reflects a true love for his students and their background, a love that's made incredibly deep given his profound intellect, poetic verbal skill, and infectious faith in the human spirit. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Stephen W. Martin, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor and speaking on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby recognize and commend Mr. Jeffrey Land on being named SLO County Teacher of the Year and thank him for his service to the students of Paso Robles. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much. It's a surprise and an honor, and I must admit I'm a little bit suspicious of any group that would have me as a member, much less give me a proclamation. But I do want to say thank you to Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Martin, City Council members, and all the city staff that work so hard on a daily basis to make this the community that we all enjoy. My students have enjoyed some interactions with city staff over the years. We had an ethnic studies effort to try to explore some of the history of the long-standing, maybe 10,000-year history of the indigenous Native American community that is now in the Walmart area along the river, and the planning department was very generous and helpful with information with that. The Youth Commission has been incredibly important for our students to gain an understanding of the city and to gain leadership skills. And so I want to thank Linda for all your work with that and all those students. When Susan DeClarley was around, she helped a lot with the students analyzing the community, the climate action plan that the city has adopted, and it really gave students an awareness about the multifaceted nature of planning in a city like this. And so I'm honored, as I say, and I think I'll accept the proclamation on the condition that I can sort of sing the praises of our school, which I think, I hope I can represent all the wonderful teachers. There's so many, it really is somewhat problematic to single out one teacher in a county or in a school, because teaching is by nature collaborative, and there are so many ways to learn, as we all know, and so many ways to teach. And I'm so honored to be a part of the Paso Robles High School staff. We have amazing field studies programs. Tomorrow we're going on a hike with students to Montana de Oro, culminating in a week-long backpacking trip in Trinity Alps in a science class we have. We go to Santa Cruz Island on the Nature Conservancy side to research botanical areas there in the week of Thanksgiving. We spend a week there in the summertime. I'll take a group of students to the desert backpacking in the Joshua Tree, and we'll survey the climate change impacts on Joshua trees. And there's just so many things that students do, and that's just a little glimpse. The arts program, the vocational arts, it's really, it's quite a village. Our mayor, Anthony, we call him principal, but he's really the mayor of a small town. Anthony Overton is doing an amazing job. He really is fantastic, and I really, I'm so proud to be a part of that team at the high school, and really, I'm proud of the students, because I've learned over the years that when I can meet my country and my town and my students sort of where they are, and we can work together for a better future, we all benefit. And every day I get the benefit of looking into the face of the future. I get to hang out with young people who are our future mayors and council members and staffers and engineers and doctors and lawyers and neighbors. And so I really feel fortunate. So I thank you, and I look forward to a school. We're working towards this. That is also, I'm so honored to be here at the same night that Maria Garcia is honored, because I think the inclusion, the diversity, celebration of the multicultural reality that is our town and our school makes us all better. And I think when we can, in ethnic studies, tell the stories that perhaps haven't been told as much about our country and about our city, we all benefit, and we all see the humanity in each other. So it's an honor, and again, I'm a bit suspicious, but I will carry this proudly, and thank you very much to the entire city of Paso Robles, Mayor and City Council, for this honor.
Up next, we have our capital projects report. Ditas Esperanza, Frida Berman.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, and the public. This is a tag team presentation with Frida and Dave Lacaro and myself. I will start off with the Public Works Roads project under construction. So the one that's, I'll start off with the Golden Hill Union Road intersection improvements. And I again want to reiterate that there are only 2 detour routes that are sanctioned by the city of Paso Robles. This route that's shown on the screen is what I refer to as the West Detour route. Encourage people to take Creston Road and Union Road towards downtown and then end up at North River Road to go north and eventually north of Highway 46. The other one is the East Detour route, which is the Ardmore Road connecting to Union Road to the east, and then coming west using Union Road and the temporary right turn at Golden Hill to go north to a safe turn at the signal at Golden Hill and Highway 46. Those are the 2 sanctioned detour routes by the city of Paso Robles. We're also encouraging people to use the businesses, the Bronco Burger, the coffee shop, known as Coffee, the car wash, but please only go there to do those things, and please do not use the parking lot as a detour route. Many of you are still doing that, and it's really not a good idea. That parking lot belongs to them. It's their parking lot. It's not a public road. The enterprise rental car access is also off Union Road. If you try to use that as a detour route, all you're going to do is end up in the enterprise rental car parking lot. So don't use that one. The other one that we're discouraging people using is the medical building at the corner at Golden Hill Road. Again, that's private property. Please do not use those driveways as a detour route, as it is not a public street. It's a private property. Please stay away from using those. The residential streets around the detour route are also just for residents. If you decide that you still want to use those routes, please do so at a snail's pace, 25 miles per hour. Again, the PD is there to monitor it, and they have been giving tickets, so slow down if you use those roads, but probably best to stay away from them. So we have radar trailers to monitor your speed. So back to the project. So we're at 80% complete with the installation of a 12-inch and 16-inch ductile iron pipe. The reason the project is taking longer than what everybody seems to think, I'm getting comments like, well, you're just putting a new road, why is it taking so long? Unfortunately, before we finish the road, we have to make sure that the underground are in good shape so that we don't tear it up when we're done. So that's why we're putting this water lines. Next one, after the water line, we will be using, installing sewer mains, fiber conduits, irrigation lines, and street lights. So we still have a lot of undergrounds to do after the water lines. And here's some more pictures of the water line. The other project that is in construction is the Melody Streets and the Appaloosa neighborhood. We're doing the Melody Streets on the west side and then the Appaloosa neighborhoods. These are the street names. There are about 28 curb ramps that needed to be upgraded in the Melody neighborhood. They're all done. And now we're working on the Appaloosa neighborhood curb ramps, and there are about 20 of them, and those are in progress. The annual sidewalk project is completed. Again, these are, the funding source for these are gas tax. So if you see any sidewalk that needs to be done, please call Paso Robles Public Works Department, because we work on a list. With the completion of this, our list is completed, so if you call us, we'll create another list so we can do some more sidewalks. And here are just some pictures of what's in bond. There's the one on the upper left is in front of Keller Williams. The one on the upper right is in front of the credit union, and then the bus stop at Wendy's. And as part of the project for the annual sidewalk, we went ahead and also installed an ADA curb ramp in front of the Veterans Center at the request of the people who were using the Veterans Center so they could access the center safely using wheelchairs. We recently did some test drilling at our parking lot here at City Hall. This is to obtain geotechnical data for the parking lot so we can prepare a feasibility study on a parking lot structure that could possibly be built over the parking lot. Finally, I wanted to give, here's some more projects coming up. So this is the Country Club neighborhood. This was recently awarded by the City Council, and we should be starting in a couple of weeks. We also have list of street striping for pavement that needs to be refreshed. If you look at the list, Niblick, 13th, Charlotte, Creston, those are all arterial. Obviously, many people use those roads. We don't want to impact traffic. So the striping will be done at night. So the work hours will be Sunday to Thursday, 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. so that we don't impact traffic. Finally, I just wanted to give you a brief update of the Creston Road corridor. We have a $600,000 grant from the California Transportation Commission. We need to encumber that grant by June 30th, 2023. We also have about a $268,000 safe route to school from SLOCOG to be used for pedestrian enhancements on Creston Road in front of Daniel Lewis. Recently, we received a notice from the state of California that the city has received $3 million to be used for Creston Road. Unfortunately, the details of using this grant is still in flux, so we don't know when we can actually get it, what are the requirements for us to allocate it, so we don't know yet how and when we can spend that money. In addition, we need right-of-way for the roundabout to be constructed at Rolling Hills. In the meantime, we have the $600,000 grant and the $268,000 grant that needs to be used. So what we need to do is create a two-phase project to use the $600,000 and the $268,000. So phase one is going to be from South River to south of Orchard. So that includes a traffic signal at Walnut and Boland, pedestrian enhancements at Orchard, Ivy, and Trigo, install missing sidewalks, curbs, and gutters, upgrade all the curb ramps to ADA standards, and of course, repair and rehabilitate pavement surfaces. Also, in anticipation of the roundabout at Golden Hill and Rolling Hills, we want to create improvements to the Golden Hill and Creston Road intersection so that can be used as a truck access in anticipation of the roundabout that will be constructed at Rolling Hills. So then phase two would be the roundabout at Rolling Hills. In the meantime, we haven't received the right-of-way for that roundabout. The original property owner would not give us the right-of-way. In the meantime, CDD accepted a development application for the improvement at that vacant property, and they are eager to give us the right-of-way. So we're waiting for that to happen. And hopefully by the time they give us the right-of-way, we will know how to get the $3 million and then proceed with the roundabout and finish up the rest of Creston Road as a phase two. So again, this is the section that was approved by the City Council as far as what Creston Road would look like. So it's 2 lanes with a middle lane, bike lanes, a buffer, and sidewalk. This is just a plan of the Walnut traffic signal, and this is what the pedestrian enhancements will look like at Daniel Lewis. Again, part of the project cost is being funded by SLOCOG. So that concludes my part of the presentation. If you have any questions before I turn it over to Dave Lacaro.
Thank you. It is a presentation item. There's no action required. Are there any questions of staff? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, David Lacaro, Public Works. I wanted to give a quick update on what's been going on out at Centennial Creek. I gave you an update last October 16th, just as far as what the background was and how we got here today. So I'm excited to see some actual movement. And in fact, what we've been able to do is start to build some rough and riffles. If you remember, these rough and riffles are essentially rock beds, cobbled beds. So you'll see off to the left-hand picture, it's a little shady, but you can see these basically cobbles of 8 to 24 inches in size, and they're granite rock. We have 15 of those that have been installed. In fact, the last one was installed today. So I'm excited about that. We're done with benching, and you can see in the background an excavator there. And what we've done is essentially benched a lot of these portions of the creek to allow for secondary flooding if we do have that. And then the picture on the left is a secondary channel for higher flows. And so that kind of takes the legs out of the water, if you will. It really just takes the energy out and lets it be more of a natural type of a water course is exactly what we're trying to look for here. So moving forward, we're moving out of the hard construction, heavy equipment phase and moving more into the bioengineering. What I mean by bioengineering essentially is very simple. We're just putting in erosion control blankets, stabilizing a lot of the exposed soil. We're going to be doing broadcasts of seeds from natural native seeds, native plants. And then we're going to be moving into, when it gets a little colder sometime in November, we're going to be planting 1 gallon plants of different oaks, various willows, different types of trees to then complete the project. Now, again, this is phase 1. So what we're trying to do is schedule phase 2, which will essentially be the east side of the creek. So that's Nickerson all the way up to Lana. And we're estimated to start that sometime next year, July 15th. And that will be estimated to go until about September, or the first 2 weeks in September. But I'll be giving you updates as that starts to go as well. But excited to see some movement. And if you're interested, we're going to be opening up the path again here in probably the next few weeks. We'll get all the heavy equipment out of there. We'll have safe, it'll be more a safe corridor for students and residents to use that section of the pathway. So that's all I have as far as the update for Centennial Creek. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. Council questions? Mr. Hammond, do you have any questions?
No, Mr. Mayor, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
all
you,
right.
sir.
I'm going to go ahead and pass the ball over to Frida Berman. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my portion of the presentation deals with parks projects and other capital improvement projects. To start with what's in progress now, I'm sure you've all seen Fire Station 3 on Union and Ardmore. Currently, they're working on the roof sheathing, site utilities, electrical rough-in, and cement board siding. That's what you'll see in the next couple weeks. But I thought it would be very interesting to see how this vision is now becoming a reality. So Wallace Group prepared a short time-lapse video that takes us from this site when it was turned over by Detus, when the site prep was done, to where we are now. And it really is remarkable where we have come in just a few months, all the work that's been done out there to bring it to an actual fire station. If you look out there now, you can see it. No music this time. I apologize for that, but it is really remarkable that this project's moving forward and this critical need is going to be fulfilled. As a reminder, this is Newton Construction and Management that is doing this project. Here you can see them working on the building slab. Walls going up. And finally, you know that I'm a big fan of flying things in overhead. So what happened was really cool, and they pre-assembled all the roof trusses and used a crane to fly them onto the structure. I've never seen it done that way before. I thought it was pretty interesting. And now we have a roof. Going on to the next project, the Uptown Family Park water feature replacement. Those bids opened last week. Unfortunately, we are going to have to go to redesign on this project. It is a grant-funded project, and the bids were, we received one bid, and it didn't fit within our budget parameters, so we are now going back to redesign. We have until sometime in 2024 to actually install the equipment, so we're good there. The Centennial Park patio shade sale, that is out to bid. The bids open on October 20th, so we should see construction by the end of the year and the structure ready for recreation classes in the spring. In design, we have the pickleball court complex. At your last meeting, you approved this conceptual design, and in that short period of time, the construction plans are at 50%. So we should see that one out to bid in late October and starting construction at the start of the year. Law enforcement facilities at 4305 Second Wind Way, those final technical details are being worked out now, and then that one will go to final plan check. And finally, the Barney Schwartz Park pump track project. As a reminder, it is a $500,000 commitment by Rec Foundation to build this facility. It is in final plan check. We expect that back at any time, and then we'll be going out to bid. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Council questions? Mr. Hammond.
None, Mr. Mayor. Great report, Rita. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for all three of those reports. Is there anyone in the room that has a question or a comment about any of those reports? Seeing no one rise, I see no one standing in line electronically. So we're going to move on with the rest of our agenda. Thank you very much for that information. We appreciate it. We come to general public comments. This is the time the public may address the council on items within the council's purview, but not on the scheduled agenda tonight. All persons desiring to speak on an agenda item are asked to fill out speaker information cards and give them to the city clerk prior to speaking. Each individual speaker will be limited to a presentation total of 3 minutes per item. Those persons wishing to speak on any item scheduled on the agenda will be given an opportunity to do so at that time when that item is being considered. State law does not allow the council to discuss or take action on issues not on the agenda, except that members of the council or staff may briefly respond to statements or questions posed by persons exercising their public testimony rights. With that, I invite you to come forward, and good evening, sir.
Good evening, Council. Dale Breckow, Paso Robles. I'm also a member of the Park and Rec Advisory Committee. And I'm here to just put a little comment in about the Youth Commission. We heard from our teacher, Jeffrey Lamb, how it's been beneficial in past years. In the last 2.5 years, it's been inactive with COVID and everything else. And we're trying to get the community, get the commission going again. Application period is open right now. It's open for use between 14 and 21. Applications will be open until September 30th. So if you know anyone, please, there's some applications in the back. And the Youth Commission, just kind of a couple words, it's a great way to get kids involved, understanding what's going on in the city, work with government, work with each other. They have a mission statement it's a youth-led organization that seeks opportunities and representation of the youth through collaboration with local government in order to enrich the lives of the youth of our community. From my own personal standpoint, being on the Park and Rec Commission for the last 6 years, it's almost invaluable to be able to participate in an advisory committee and be able to interact with government and local leaders and the community itself. And I think having a youth commission is obviously going to be extremely beneficial to them. As Jeffrey Lamb said as well, it's been used in the past. So please, if you know someone that wants to step up, encourage them to apply. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Martin and City Council. I'm John D'Annunzio, SLOCOG staff. I'm the Regional Transportation Planner for our agency. I represent City of Paso and North County. During COVID-19, a number of unusual travel behaviors occurred, which have confounded regional transportation planners. So the vehicle mile travels were reduced, but speeds and reckless driving increased. So therefore, the severity of crashes increased. Slight crashes became more severe. Severe became fatal. The Governor's Highway Association recognized that we're now seeing the largest number of pedestrian fatalities in 4 decades. Nationwide, between 2010 and 2020, pedestrian deaths have increased an astonishing 54%, while all other fatalities have increased just 13%. So in 2021, about 7,500 pedestrians were killed in traffic crashes nationwide, which is an increase of 11.5% from the year before. Now in SLO County, between 2010 and 2021, there were 46 pedestrian deaths, representing 12.5% average of total fatalities. But the number of pedestrian deaths is increasing. Fatalities are increasing each year. So in August, at our SLOCOG board meeting, we asked board members if they could nominate 2 elected or appointed from committees, from communities that they represent. And staff have been working with city council members to identify delegates from the city of Paso to come down to our forum on October 4th and 5th. So our regional safety forum will be hosted by SLOCOG, but also SLO County Public Health in partnership with FHWA, Caltrans, Public Works, RTA, and it'll be held down at the Ludwig Center. The theme is creating a culture of safety in San Luis Obispo region, and the website is slowsafestreets.org, where my contact information, John D'Annunzio, can be found. Delegates from around the county are coming to this forum to hear from local, state, and federal partners on this issue and on this topic. The Tuesday nights, taco nights, we'll be having tacos that night, and Wednesday night, pizza. So we hope that the city of Paso Robles could identify 1 or 2, somebody that would be already on a committee and represent the city at our forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to make general public comment? Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Monty Jones, resident business owner of town. Longtime listener, first-time caller. I can't tell if this body has abdicated or forgotten their basic civic responsibilities to the residents and business owners, or the businesses of town. We fail to enforce basic vagrancy, littering, trespass, camping laws everywhere from Riverside, Niblick, Amtrak Station, Spring Street, the downtown park. You forget to pay the meter, it is the ferocity of a feral fox in the hen house that they'll get you for. We can't pave our alleys, can't build sidewalks, can't build strike crosswalks even in school zones. We're paying, according to the city, $6.74 million for the traffic circle up on Golden Hill. We all bemoan the lack of housing and affordable housing in this town, but it takes years, if not decades, to get projects off the ground. If you want to build a duplex on your property, it costs $60,000 in fees and hookups, not to mention the extortion of having to put in a sidewalk. We're on the hook for millions with this spaceport for non-residents, jobs that don't exist yet. But instead, we failed to provide basic civic services. New parks, maintaining parks, our roads are in disarray, improving the schools and the traffic situation around town. We're building endless hotels, tech corridors, spaceports, and on. So I asked the council and the city, are the residents here and now not good enough for you? Because based on the actions and priority that I've seen from this city over the years, it's hard to tell if you guys feel that way. It's truly a tale of two cities we're living in, and I urge the city and the council to do better. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? I see no one online. We will close general public comments. I appreciate the comments brought up by our last speaker. I'd like to clarify a couple of points. First of all, the city has not spent and does not intend to spend millions on a spaceport. Secondly, the priorities of the city are set by the citizens, ascertained by surveys and public input. Those priorities currently are public safety, street repair, and economic development. And those are the areas that we are concentrating our efforts on at this point in time. And as far as the difficulty of building here, we have actually had a Housing Opportunities and Constraints Committee in place for over 2 years now, which has significantly reduced the amount of fees necessary to build new homes in the city and streamlined the process to apply and develop those homes. I do appreciate your concern, sir, and if you would like more details about these issues, I'd be happy to meet with you and connect you with staff. We move on now. I will ask the city manager if we have any agenda items to be deferred.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pardon me. There is one item. It's not on the consent agenda. However, it is item number 23 that's it's noted on your agenda, but it's been withdrawn by the appellant. And so it's no longer an item for consideration for the council this evening.
Very good. So 23 will not be heard tonight because that's been withdrawn.
That's correct.
We move on now to consent agenda. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine, not requiring separate discussion. However, if discussion is wanted by a member of the council or public, that item may be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. Council members and members of the public may offer comments or ask questions of clarification without removing an item from the calendar. Individual items are approved by the vote that approves the consent calendar unless an item is pulled for separate consideration. Items pulled from consent are often heard at the end of the meeting unless the council decides otherwise. That being said, I'll ask council members if they have any brief questions about consent calendar items or would like to have an issue removed. No hands going up here. Mr. Hammond?
No, Mr. Mayor, I have none. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the community that has a question or would like to have an item removed from the consent calendar? No one in the room is moving. I see no one online. Mr. Gregory.
Is it okay to make a motion?
Hang on a sec. So we have no public comment coming from the room or electronically. Therefore, public comment on consent calendar items is closed. I'll bring it back to the council for action.
So,
Mr. Gregory.
I'd like to make a motion to approve items 5 through 19 in the consent agenda.
Hammond seconds.
I have a motion by Councilman Gregory, second by Councilman Hammond. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Bauer.
No questions.
We're good. If there's no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Moving now to public hearings, item number 20, completion of proceedings to form a community facilities district number 2022-3, that's Beechwood Services, to provide maintenance and services including roadways, parks, open space, as well as police, fire, and community services. This is an item that we have to follow a very tight script on in order to meet legal requirements, so I'm going to do that at this time.
Mr. Mayor, did you want me to review the items on the consent calendar?
Thank you very much. I once again hopscotched that item. For the people at home that are not aware of the items that we considered under the consent calendar, I'll ask the city manager to give us a brief report on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our first item on the consent calendar is Constitution Week Proclamation in remembrance of the 250th year since our Constitution was drafted. The second item is approval of our 8/16/22 City Council meeting minutes and 8/24/22 special City Council meeting minutes. Item 8, receipt of advisory body minutes, receipt of our warrant register, and of course we have ongoing remote and hybrid remote meetings here at the city for the City Council and other advisory body members. It's a reaffirmation of that resolution 21-147 pursuant to Assembly Bill 361. We also have an amendment to the Conflict of Interest Code of the City of the El Paso Robles pursuant to the Political Reform Act of 1974. We have approval of a contribution agreement for fiscal years 22-23 and 23-24 for the Paso Robles Chamber of Commerce. We have approval of a job reclassification and an update to the master pay schedule. We have the second reading and adoption of ordinance 1123, amending sections 14.04.170 of the municipal code regarding penalties due to non-payment. We have approval of update to the investment policy, award for design services for road repairs, Zone 6B, which is in Sierra Bonita, and 6C, Turtle Creek. We have acceptance of a final map of tract 3069-1 for recordation. We have acceptance of a final map of tract 3060 for recordation. And last but not least, we have approval of oak tree removal permit 22-12, removal of one 32-inch diameter blue oak tree, 232 12th Street. APN is 009-081-009.
Thank you, and I'll remind everyone listening in that all of these items and the associated staff reports are available on the Paso Robles City website, prcity.com. You can review those prior to city council meetings if you would like. Thank you for that reminder. It's important that people be informed about the consent calendar. Now we move on to item number 20, as stated previously. I will open the public hearing regarding the formation of Community Facilities District number 2022-3, levy of special taxes therein, and the provision of certain services. I will ask the city clerk if the notice of the public hearing has been mailed and published in accordance with the law.
Yes, sir. Notice was mailed and published in accordance with the law.
Thank you. Ask city staff for a report regarding the estimated costs of services to be provided for and within the Community Facilities District, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Ryan Cornell, Administrative Services Director. Real quick review of the Beechwood specific plan. The Beechwood specific plan calls for 911 units out on the southern eastern portion of the city limits. The project was approved by City Council at a 5-0 vote on October 6, 2020. A component of the project approval was the creation of a community facilities district. Community facilities districts are an additional taxing mechanism that allows the city to charge these particular parcels for the services that are required to serve them that's not being captured through property taxes. On August 2nd, City Council initiated the formation of the district, and tonight's meeting is to finalize the formation. Very specifically, the Beechwood specific plan that's before you is a little bit different than the Olson South Chandler in that Olson South Chandler had a facilities component. Tonight's action is only looking at the services. So that's specifically funding for police, fire, park, and road maintenance and the like. The tax would be $816 per unit for normal single-family residents. There is an apartment unit that's planned in that development. Those apartment units would be seeing a tax of $82 per year, and that those taxes will escalate thereafter and forever. So this would be added to the county tax roll and collected through property taxes. Currently, the city has 3 services CFDs, one citywide that provides any new annexations and new developments within the city. Like I just mentioned, we had formed Olson South Chandler a couple of months ago, and then this one is Beechwood's for council's action this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And here is the report.
Thank you, sir. This time I'll ask if any persons who wish to present testimony or protest regarding the information of the CFD number 2022-3 come forward and make that known now. I see no one rising. I see no one online. I will ask the city clerk if any written protests have been received.
No written protests have been received.
I will ask the city clerk whether there are fewer than 12 persons registered to vote in the territory of the district.
The County of San Luis Obispo Registrar of Voters has certified that there are fewer than 12 registered voters within the territory.
I will ask the city clerk if the owners of all of the taxable property in Community Facilities District number 2022-3 have consented to holding the special election on September 20th, 2022, immediately following the public hearing.
Yes.
And I will ask the city clerk if she concurs that the special election may be held on September 20th, 2022, immediately following the public hearing.
Yes, I concur.
I will note that no testimony or protests have been received, and I will close this public hearing. I will Move now to consideration of adoption of resolutions establishing the district and calling election. And we'll ask for a motion and a second to approve the resolution.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Strong.
Yes, I will move that we approve Resolution 22XXXA, establishing the CFD number 2022-3 and the boundaries thereof.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Strong, second by Councilman Bausch. There is no further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Strong.
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch.
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Mayor Martin.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Strong.
Yes, I move that we approve Resolution 22XXXB, calling a special election and submitting to the voters of CFD number 2022-3 propositions regarding the annual levy of special taxes within the CFD to pay the cost of certain public services and establishing an appropriations limit for the CFD.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Strong, second by Councilman Gregory. If there's no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Strong.
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory.
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Mayor Martin.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Now ask the city clerk to conduct the special election and announce the results of the canvass of the votes cast.
I have conducted and canvassed the special election. The official ballots have been reviewed and all votes are in favor of the ballot measures. Therefore, all of the ballot measures pass.
Thank you. I will ask for a motion and a second to approve the following resolution.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Strong.
I move that we approve Resolution 22XXXC, declaring the results of the special election within CFD number 2022-3.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Strong, second by Councilman Bausch. If there's no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Strong.
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch.
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Mayor Martin.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
And Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Strong.
I would move that we introduce for first reading ordinance XXXX, authorizing the levy of special taxes within CFD number 2022-3.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Strong, second by Councilman Gregory. If there's no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Strong.
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory.
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Mayor Martin.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. I trust this concludes the business associated with item number 20. Thank you. We move on now to item number 21, first reading of amendment to section 14.04.020 of the Paso Robles Municipal Code, allowing rates for water service fees to be established by resolution. Staff report, please.
Yes, hi, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Ryan Cornell, Administrative Services Director. So tonight's action tonight is the first reading of an amendment to the Paso Robles Municipal Code section 1404 regarding how we establish water fees. So financially speaking, the water fund or the water system is a self-supporting enterprise fund, which means that water rates is the main source of paying for those services. As such, and in accordance with the current municipal code, the city is allowed to charge and collect fees related to the consumption of water from every water customer within the city. The city has also opted to follow Health and Safety Code section 5471, which allows for the city to establish water rates by either ordinance or by resolution. An ordinance is simply a change to the Paso Robles Municipal Code. So because it's essentially the city's constitution, there are different protocols and steps to be had in order to make any changes to the Paso Robles Municipal Code. Very specifically, it requires 2 readings, one at 2 regularly scheduled meetings, and then it goes into effect 30 days thereafter. Whereas a resolution can be approved and adopted by City Council at 1 meeting and effective thereafter. The recommended changes before City Council tonight does not change or impact in any way, shape, or form the Proposition 218. That proposition is a requirement in order to change rates. And in this action, we're not changing the rates. We're keeping the same rates. We're just establishing them by resolution. And the whole reason why we're bringing this action to the council this evening is in anticipation of water rate increase. And so back in March time of this year, the City Council approved the contract with BW Bartel Well and Associates to establish a water rate study. And so because we have that in the process, we figured because it was important to establish water fees by resolution, that we could do these on parallel tracks. So as you can see in this timeline over here, we're at September 20th today, where we're doing the first reading of this ordinance. A separate council action will be the adoption of the water master plan. Once we get through that, then at the next meeting, either in October or the second meeting in October, we're going to initiate the 218 process, which then provides the public and every single water customer with that notice that water rates could be changing. And so as of right now, we're anticipating that public hearing will be on December 6th. But again, in order to change the water rates by resolutions, we could take that action now. So the plan is to have the first reading tonight, the second reading of the next meeting, and then we'll have it already established and ready to go for when we have that 218 process. Another thing I also wanted to note as well, because in water, the cost to deliver water increases over time, and inherently, that means we're constantly making changes to the municipal code the way it is today. And so to kind of streamline the process, because we know water rates increase over time, we figured to streamline the process now. Now, we did do the similar thing last year when we did wastewater rates. We established those by resolutions and changed the municipal code at that time. And so we're just following suit with the water side of things. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, this is just a mechanism of how we establish rate, not changing our methodology of why we're changing rates or how or what we need to do in order to do that.
Thank you. Are there any council questions of staff? Mr. Hammond.
No, Mr. Mayor, just a comment again that I think our Roblins need to know that we are not selling water, we're moving water. It's the cost to convey it and bring it to their faucet is what they're being charged for. Is that correct, Ryan?
That is correct.
That's correct. Thank you. So I do have one written public comment with some questions I'd like to have you answer if you could, Mr. Cornell. Mr. Jeff Carr asked if there are unmentioned state of California requirements for an ordinance versus a resolution that would be eliminated if these changes are made.
Not that I'm aware of. The 218 process is still established, and that is still the Constitution state law that we have to follow.
So for those who are listening to this discussion for the first time, what is the Prop 218 process?
So the Proposition 218 process requires a 45 days advance notice of any sort of water rate change. In addition to the 45-day requirement, the city is required to notify and notice every single water customer and water and property owner within the city to let them know that the public hearing was going to be in 45 days, and if they want to protest the rates, that's the time and opportunity to do such.
Thank you. And then Mr. Carr is concerned that possibly the city is deficient when it comes to public transparency and good management. 3 questions for you. First, what reports regarding the solvency and the operation of our water operation do we make available to the public, and when?
So it's really critical for the water operations to do these water rate study analysis every 5 years, which is another recommended change in the municipal code. It's just to follow what 218 allows us. 218 allows us to establish rates for 5 years. And so we follow that practice and looking at the water fund at a 10-year horizon, but then establish rates for 5 years. And so every 5 years, we're still looking at 10 years out. And so that's how the water fund stays solvent, and it has healthy reserve balances today.
What is the status of solvency for our water operations now financially?
Our reserve requirements are met, yes. So our minimum reserve requirements for the water enterprise funds is 25% of operation plus $1 million for capital. We exceed that today.
Thank you. And as far as actual operation, management of the operation, how smoothly is our water service functioning? Have we had any critical blow-ups, any management problems that have been called to our attention?
Not that I'm aware of. If anything, we're being proactive. I know a couple of years ago, some of our Thunderbird wells were compromised, and so we programmed funds to help mitigate the erosion of the riverbed. So we were definitely proactive in any and all water infrastructure.
Very good. Thank you for that. I'll ask if there's any public comment from people in the room. Seeing no one rise, no one online, I will close public comment, bring it back to the council for discussion and action.
Mr. Mayor.
I'm ready.
Hang on. Mr. Hammond, I'm going to let you speak because you're out of sight and you get kind of a 1-second lead time. Go ahead.
Yes, sorry, I was just going to make a comment.
Yeah.
That the public know that we are not allowed to charge any more than it takes to run the system. In other words, the conveyance, the maintenance, all that, we're not allowed to charge any more than it takes to do that. So that's something, again, everybody needs to keep in mind. That reason we are having to raise up is because we're going to be going in the red if we don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
That we introduce for the first reading ordinance XXX, amending section 14.04.020 of the Paso Robles Municipal Code, allowing for the rates for the water service fees to be established by a city council resolution.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Gregory, second by Councilman Bausch. There's no further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gregory?
Yes.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Item number 22, revised airport minimum standards. Mr. Skandalis.
Mr. Mayor, council members, Mark Skandalis, Airport Manager. So I'm here to present on the revised airport minimum standards. Next slide. So what is that? So we did an update. The airport minimum standards were adopted in 2027. In 2022, we did an update. This update is initiated by the Airport Commission Subcommittee on Fuel Concession, and they wanted to do this in preparation for the 2023 request for proposals for our full-service fixed-base operator. The idea of the update was to tailor the minimum standards to Paso Robles Airport's specific needs, to update it to reflect what we see in 2022, and to streamline the process and reduce barriers of entry for people who want to apply to the RFP. So what are minimum standards? It's a document that is used to set the conditions if you want to be an aeronautical business at the airport. It's to promote safety in airport activities, to protect airport users from unlicensed and unauthorized activities, enhance availability as a services to everybody, promote orderly development of the airport, and to prevent disputes between aeronautical providers and reduce potential complaints because everyone is playing on a level playing field. So there are these major sections: an introduction, general requirements, fixed-based operator section, types of aeronautical services, application and qualifications, business plan, and insurance requirements. This update doesn't change any of them, doesn't add them, doesn't subtract, it just moves them around to tailor to our airport. So whether you do one service or you do 10 services, you're called a fixed-based operator. And those types of businesses at the airport can be fuel, maintenance, flight schools, aircraft rentals, storage, or sales, avionics shops, so radios and electronics, skydiving and charters, and then anything else you can think of that uses an aircraft. So what a full service fixed-based operator is, it's the premier aeronautical business. They have the right to sell fuel, which is the most lucrative business at the airport. Currently, ours is ACI Jet. They've been here for 12 years. Their contract expires in June of 2023. They are also the provider for Orange County and San Luis Obispo. So what are the updates that the Airport Commission wanted? We had some minor things, definitions, legal definitions, cleanup of ambiguity or contradictions, either throughout that document or across other documents at the airport. And then we added a table of contents. And then the major update was what we require the full service fixed base operator to provide. So on the left, you can see the old requirements for the full service fixed base operator. The idea was to define the core functions and then make everything else a la carte, so you can choose it based on what our airport actually needs. So in the old document, we required 5 things: fuel, maintenance, charter, flight instruction, and essential pilot services. And then there was a may engage section. There was no requirement to engage in any of those. In the new standards, we wanted to whittle it down to just the most core functions. So that's fuel and maintenance. And then the other 3 that were required have been moved into the may engage section, but that may engage section is now you must choose 2 or more. It just helps tailor it to our airport specific needs. So we have a good flight school, so we don't need to necessarily require that out of the fixed base operator. So in summary, this update initiated by the Airport Commission Subcommittee. The Airport Commission approved this unanimously in the June 2022 meeting. The idea was to streamline this process for the RFP, tailor the document to our airport's needs, decrease barriers of entry for people trying to be an FBO, and to prepare for that 2023 full service request for proposals. So I ask you guys by resolution to adopt the new airport minimum standards with as presented or with revisions. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Questions of staff? Mr. Hammond?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Mark, this is extremely well done on the fixed-based operator side, but does this document also work with the non-aviation side of tenants on the airport?
This document is not required to do anything with non-aviation tenants. It is specifically for, there's an advisory circular which the FAA puts out guidelines for airports. It's specifically for aeronautical businesses only.
That's what I thought. All right, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open the public comment for people in the room. I see no one rising. Anyone waiting online?
No, sir.
Very good. We'll close public comment, bring it back to the council for discussion and action. Mr. Gregory.
I'm ready to make a motion. I recommend we approve the updated minimum standards either as presented or with refinements. So as presented.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Gregory, second by Councilman Strong. The only further discussion I would make is this is another in a series of steps that we're doing at our Paso Robles Airport to establish an aviation business environment which will indeed feed into and support hopefully a spaceport effort in the future. And a lot of focus on that, and in light of comments previously tonight, I think it's important to elucidate that whenever possible. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gregory.
Aye.
Councilmember Strong.
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Mayor Martin.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. As noted earlier, item 23 has been removed from the agenda tonight. We move to discussion items. Item number 24 is the adoption of the 2020 Water System Master Plan. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Kirk Gonzalez, your water resources engineer, and I'm pleased to be here with you this evening to report on item 24 and recommend for adoption the city's recently completed water system master plan. So completion of the master plan is an important milestone for the city's water department. The master plan allows us to continue to plan and budget for improvements that we need to make and reinvestments into our system so we can keep it in good operating order. So I'll provide a brief presentation to you this evening, giving you an overview of the purpose of the plan, giving you a brief summary of some of the analyses that we conduct as part of the plan, and also summarizing the key findings and recommendations of our master plan. So the Water Master Plan is one of two major studies that the Water Enterprise funds periodically or with regularity. The other plan being the city's urban water management plan. I just want to make a distinction between those really quickly. The urban water management plan is that study that's really assessing the city's overall water supply portfolios, comparing those to the projected demands that we're anticipating from our existing community, as well as those that we expect through build out, and ensuring that we have adequate water supplies. This study, the one we're talking about this evening, our water system master plan, is really a much more technical evaluation as to the condition and the overall capacity of our water system infrastructure. So what we're looking at here is really the pipes and mains, wells, pumps, tanks, those sorts of facilities that we use to deliver potable water to our customers. the water master plan documents our engineering consultant evaluation of that condition assessment and the evaluation of capacity. And the outcomes of this effort are individual projects and budgetary estimates that allow us to plan for those reinvestments into our system, and also, you know, to anticipate new projects that are going to be needed to serve growth in the future. I just want to briefly here with this slide give you a graphical representation and an overview of some of the analyses and steps, and also the data that go into this analysis. And it's really an extensive technical evaluation. The evaluation itself is, or the master plan itself is hundreds of pages, but I just wanted to capture it all here in one slide. In terms of our condition evaluation, our engineering consultant does a handful of things. They're out there visiting the sites, the pump stations, the tanks, those sorts of facilities. And they're also considering the age of our installed underground assets, so the piping systems that we don't see day to day, and comparing those to the estimated useful lives of those systems. So that way they could assess, you know, what sort of budget should we be setting aside with regularity so that we could be renewing those assets. On the other side of this slide, on the right-hand side, you'll see some steps and information that goes into the capacity analysis. In terms of the capacity analysis, what our consultant is doing is using a complex model that uses software to capture all the pipes and infrastructure within our water distribution system. And then they take that model and they apply to it various demand or loading scenarios. They could look at our existing demands and assess where we may have existing capacity constraints and figure out how we could address those. And then they'll also, as part of this analysis, also they'll look at the future conditions. So our future demands that we project as we grow and see, you know, new developments come online, as well as infill development. They'll apply these demand conditions to this model, and with that model, assess what projects are going to be needed to address existing capacity issues, as well as help make way for future growth. So that, in a nutshell, is some of the big picture analysis. And from that, you see down towards the middle of the slide, they'll recommend to us projects and give us budgetary estimates so we can have a capital improvement program to make these improvements into our infrastructure. So right to the key findings and recommendations. And these next few slides, I kind of broke it out in terms of which improvements are recommended just as reinvestments or renewal in our infrastructure. So that's what you see on this first slide, and then I'll get into additional recommendations. So in terms of these conditions-based improvements, the master plan recommended phased implementation of an asset renewal strategy that calls for about $2.6 million per year to be invested in our system just to maintain it in good, healthy working order. And that's a $2.6 million investment annually over a 30-year period. As a result, you'll see on this slide for the 30-year total represented $77.6 million of that 30-year period. So this includes recurring maintenance and investments in all those wells, pump stations, storage tanks, and those facilities. And we're looking at, so that's just the conditions-based assessment. And on this slide here, we're representing, this is just a little bit of background, in terms of those piping systems underground. This is one of the pieces of data that go into that assessment. And you could see for the about 172 miles of buried piping we have, you could see that we have infrastructure that's, it was installed in the early 1900s, and about 20% of our piping is about 70 years old. So we have some pretty significantly aged infrastructure that we're looking to take care of with implementation of this master plan. On this next slide, I'm summarizing the key findings and recommendations for our capacity-based needs. So the master plan recommends improvements to approximately 5 miles of pipelines and mains with an estimated budget of $12.1 million in total for those projects in order to meet existing capacity targets. And these are generally driven by what we call fire flow requirements. They're some of the biggest demands that are applied to our water system. So we're making these improvements to ensure that we have adequate fire suppression, firefighting capabilities through our system. They're largely, these improvements to address existing capacity deficiencies, they're largely in the historic areas of the city. So the west side, where there's a lot of older piping, undersized piping, is fairly common in those areas. So much of these projects are in those areas. And some of the good news is that our existing storage tanks are adequate to serve our current community needs, and we've got fairly limited needs for major improvements to our booster pump facilities. So the various projects that I've identified so far and summarized in these tables, those are the ones that are needed to renew our infrastructure and to address existing deficiencies. They form the large majority of the City Water Fund's overall capital improvements program, but there's one additional category that of improvements that's analyzed in the Water Master Plan, and those are improvements that we need to address anticipated future capacity deficiencies or capacity needs. So in this category, as you can see on the slide, our consultant has recommended projects totaling $17 million. These are largely consisting of new mains to form loops through our system, as well as upsizing some mains. And there is one new 1 million gallon storage tank that's needed to support growth as the east side develops. That tank is planned for the Chandler, what used to be the Chandler Ranch. On this final slide here, we're summarizing the budgetary costs for the recommended capacity-based improvements for those two categories, addressing existing deficiencies as well as anticipated future needs. And those are totaling, the two in those categories totaling $29.2 million. In summary, that we do have need to continue to plan and budget for investments and rehabilitation, renewal of our assets, and also make some key improvements to address existing deficiencies and make way for future needs. So with adoption and implementation of this master plan, we'll continue to be good stewards of our water infrastructure. That's it for the report. I'm pleased to recommend to the City Council that we adopt the water system master plan.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Mr. Gregory.
Yeah, I've got you up there. Let me ask you a couple questions on storage.
Sure.
So right now we have enough storage for everything on the east and the west side, but we're going to augment another 1 million gallon storage tank just to help through development.
Yes.
And will we be developing more storage as development comes along, or?
Yeah, so yes, you're right that we do have sufficient storage currently. We have 12 million gallons of storage currently. The need for that additional storage is to support growth in the city, so both infill development and new projects. So there will come a time that we'll need to construct that additional storage just to facilitate delivery to the additional demands of the city.
And then on the older pipelines, is the target to try to get those out in the next 5 years and replace all the lines that are over 100 years old?
That would be great. What we do in part of this, and you can see it on this slide here, the projects to address those existing deficiencies are categorized in two kind of priority levels, Category A and Category B, which is shown on the slide. The ideas behind that are, we've got a lot of smaller piping. Some of it may need to get replaced, and of course that would bring it to a higher priority. In cases where it's functioning properly, it may become a lesser priority. So we're really considering, and the engineer helps us with this, consider the overall cost for implementing those projects and conducting those improvements relative to the benefits that they provide. I can't say, the Category A and B projects are really over the next 15-year period. So it's not that, I can't say that we're going to address all those 20% of our assets, the aged assets in the next 5 years. But we are looking to do it in the near term.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Strong.
Yes, and you mentioned a lot of this for future development, but actually doesn't some of the same things apply to some existing development? And I'm thinking on the far south side, on the east side, the Herod development has low pressure, has low capacity on its water right now. So it's barely sufficient to meet landscape needs for watering. and fire flow. So won't that looping and that capacity and that tank provide the appropriate pressure and volume to correct that deficiency for those existing people?
Yes, so some of the improvements that are planned as part of this will have benefits both to the new development as well as existing development. So there are cases where some of those future projects are going to be improving conditions for both. This plan itself really makes a distinction between those projects that are specifically needed for support of new development versus those that are overall improvements to the system. What we do is, and as you know, we've collected capital facility charges or connection fees for some time. This master plan is really a continuation of past master plans. So we have been collecting fees from new development to support projects like these, and many of these projects are not new projects. They've been on the books for quite some time.
And some of these things still serve that dual purpose.
They do, and this isn't the study that really makes a distinction between how much budget is going towards, or how much benefit is allocated towards existing versus future. Only in the case that there's projects that are specifically and only needed for future development.
Thank you.
Have that distinction in this study.
Councilman Bausch.
Thank you. There's been a small amount of concern that the need for a new million-gallon storage tank on the east side to support new development is going to be paid for by the rest of the city. How would you address that concern?
I would assure the city that, again, we've been collecting connection fees from development over the years. This isn't a new project, so we have been planning for this project, and we will continue to collect development fees that will go towards that project and the other major projects here. It's not that our existing customers are funding that. In fact, that is one of the projects that's strictly in that future category.
And paid for by developer fees.
That's correct.
Thank you very much.
Councilman Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that was one of my questions that Councilman Bausch brought up with regard to funding the new capital improvement of the water tank. Kirk, my question though is, do we have a site location yet determined?
Yes, we do have a location. The location for that tank is really driven by system hydraulics, and so we need it to be elevated somewhere. And so we have an area there on Chandler Ranch that's elevated, provides that topography that we need for that tank.
Right. Reason I was asking that we recently sold, not recently, but a few years ago, property over off of south of Charlotte that was designed for a water tank. And clearly we didn't need it at that point, but we do have then a site that would be functional for the east side especially then.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I have.
Any further questions? Mr. Strong.
Just a clarification again. The criteria for that tank is that all the tanks have to be at approximately the same elevation in order to have equal water flow throughout the city, do they not?
Well, I want to clarify on that. What we have in our city is a handful of pressure zones. We have two main pressure zones, west side and east side. And the tanks that serve those main pressure zones, main west and main east, are at different elevations because the service areas are at different elevations. There's a boundary, if you will, hydraulic boundary in terms of pumping systems and valves that we use to separate those systems, but still allow water to go between one system and another when we need it.
Okay.
So they're interconnected, but they're distinct pressure zones. And then within each of those main pressure zones, we have smaller pressure zones.
Is that boundary primarily the river?
Yeah, it's pretty, yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any further council questions? Thank you, sir. We'll open to the public for comment. I see no one in the room. I see no one standing in line online. We'll close public comment, bring it back to the council for discussion and action. Mr. Gregory.
There's no other discussion. I'm ready to make a motion that we approve Resolution 22XXX adopting the 2020 Water System Master Plan and authorizing staff to take necessary steps to begin implementation of the plan.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Gregory, second by Councilman Strong. If there's no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gregory.
Aye.
Councilmember Strong.
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Mayor Martin?
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Item number 25, approval of 2022-24 federal and state legislative platform. Mr. Huat.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members, Chris Huat, City Manager's Office. This item really began with the setting of your goals through the goal setting session, both in February and those goals that were adopted in April. Included in those goals are several priorities of the council and the community. Specifically included in there was the development of a legislative platform, as well as a goal that talked about making sure that the city is receiving its fair share, of state and federal funding. So this document is responsive to both of those items. To help us with development of this plan and to make sure that we're amplifying our communication at the state and federal level, the City Council approved an agreement back in June with Townsend Public Affairs for both legislative advocacy services as well as grant writing services. To date, they have submitted multiple grant applications on behalf of the city, as well as helped us through both the end of the legislative session in Sacramento, providing key feedback and information on important bills, including the Diablo closure extension bill that came up late in the session, as well as providing us updates on several other priority bills that made their way through the legislature and onto the governor's desk at the end of the session. They also helped us develop the platform that's before you this evening, so I just wanted to take a moment and explain what it is and how it potentially will be used if it's approved by the City Council this evening. First and foremost, this is a common tool that's used by many other cities, including several in the county. As part of this process, we did talk to other cities in the county, did have copies of their legislative platforms in front of us to make sure that where there was the opportunity to meet the City Council's goal of regional collaboration, it was included. So other cities are using these types of documents to help, again, amplify their communication in Sacramento and in DC. This document's broken into three parts. I'll talk a little bit about the sections, and then I'll talk about how it potentially could be used. The first section is what's called the legislative principles. Those are the overall kind of philosophical pillars that are included in the document that direct staff and potentially Townsend to engage at the state and the federal level. The second section is the legislative priority statements, which are a little bit more granular, that provide typically support, opposition, and advocacy positions that are typically responsive to issues that are facing cities. Some of them are more generic in nature, meaning many cities will likely have these types of statements in their legislative platforms. Some are more specific, that are based on priorities and projects that are near and dear to the City Council's heart and of course the community as well. So you'll see kind of that mix in there as we go through the different sections. Again, I'm not going to go point by point, but we did break those legislative policy statements out into 5 subject areas: protect local control and funding, public safety and emergency services, infrastructure and transportation, housing and homelessness, and then finally economic development. The third section in there talks about a little bit more about the process that staff's proposing to be included in this plan that would outline a little bit more about how we would go about engaging with the state and federal bills or positions or regulations that may come before us. Typically what will happen is, in the case of a bill, it may be introduced throughout the legislative session. And depending on the nature of that bill, it may fall into one of the different legislative advocacy areas that we outlined here. The city may be able then to take a quick position on that bill, and that could be support if amended, oppose unless amended. And if the city staff in this case determines that it does fall within one of these areas, typically what we would do is prepare, in most cases, a letter for the mayor's signature articulating that position. If the mayor's not available, it would fall to the mayor pro tem. And if it was more city operations side of the house, we potentially could have Mr. Lewis sign on behalf of the city. In all cases, any correspondence or any other sort of advocacy plan that is based in this based from this plan, this platform, will be communicated to the entire council. So if it's a letter of support or opposition, et cetera, you all will receive a copy of that letter. If it's some other action that staff is proposing to take, that will come before you as well. Not come before you in terms of a council item, but through our regular communication channels. And then finally, I'd like to note that we do have Casey Elliott, Townsend Public Affairs Vice President. He's our legislative advocacy assigned staff member with Townsend. He is on the line if there are any questions about how they typically use ledge platforms to advocate again and communicate with our different state and federal officials. And so he's on the line and happy to answer any questions. So with that, I'll pause to see if there's questions that I can answer, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Mr. Bausch?
So, Mr. Elliott, thank you for meeting with me as part of the onboarding process. I had a question as I left that meeting. What happens if your group of clients, your constituents, happen to have a disagreement on positions? If Paso Robles, for example, advocated on a bill before the legislature and the city of Atascadero was opposed, how would you handle that situation?
Good evening, Casey Elliott with Townsend Public Affairs. Thank you for that question, sir. Generally speaking, we obviously work to make sure that legislation is, beneficial or our positions are aligned with as many cities possible. In the instance that there is a potential conflict between our specific clients, then we would bring that to staff's attention and work through that through however necessary, up to and including, if it were necessary, TPA would work with the city to identify an alternative advocate for that specific issue that then we would pay out of our pocket. So there would be no additional harm to the city, and we would make sure that your interests are represented and at no additional cost. I should note that we've had this policy in place for over 20 years and fortunately have never had to use that. So it would be a very extreme position, but our first and foremost is to make sure that the city's positions is adequately advocated in front of the legislature. But if there's other cities, for example, Atascadero, which is not one of our clients, that have other issues, obviously we are advocating on behalf of the city's position aggressively and trying to convince others as to why they should be adopting the city's position.
Thank you for the answer.
Any further questions? Okay. Need further, Mr. What?
No, sir, other than we are recommending that the city council approve the legislative platform as drafted. Certainly, we expect to bring this back to the council less frequent than every 2 years. If something does come up that necessitates a revision, obviously we can come back and make that change as needed.
And this is obviously a rather broad document. If a situation should arise that kind of falls between the cracks, that's going to be brought to the council before any action is taken.
Absolutely. So this doesn't necessarily address every issue that can and will come up. What it's not meant to address is things outside of the city's typical customary role in terms of the position that the council and staff play. So if there's a broader global social issue or something that really is outside the city council's purview, obviously that's not something that's contained in here or that we would take any action on.
Very good. So if there are no further questions of staff, I'll open the public comment. No one in the room? No one waiting online? We'll close public comment, bring it back to the council. Mr. Strong?
Yes, and this is a comment before a motion, because one of the things that impresses me with this and in our discussions earlier is that this aligns very closely with the positions of Cal Cities, which is sometimes referred to as the League, as well as with CalCog, which is the California Association of Councils of Governments, of which I'm the president statewide. And I've been on the committees for these purposes with both of these organizations for many years. And these are pretty basically the same positions that both organizations take, with the exception of CalCog, because CalCog has sometimes differences between its major large metropolitan areas down in the Southern California versus those in North or Central. When we have a conflict among members that's severe, then we choose to take no position. We just stay out of the fray totally and let each of them battle it out themselves through their advocates, which we are hiring tonight. And this has been a very successful process because the biggest concerns, as expressed here, are retaining local control to prevent state attempts, which have been made in the past, to take away our zoning powers, to take away our police powers, to take away almost everything except what they tell us we must do, without giving us the funding to do it, of course. So these are the things that we have to protect ourselves from, as well as advocate for a better system that we're so frequently, almost always, one size does not fit all. And so you have to have that flexibility so we can meet our local situations. And this is one way to do it. It's an excellent document.
Did you have a motion?
And my motion is that we approve the city's 2022 to 2024 state and federal legislative platform as drafted.
Second. Motion by Councilman Strong, second by Councilman Bausch. Is there any further discussion?
I do have one thing to say. You forgot about, the state taking money.
Mr. Hammond, any comments before we vote? I'll take that as a no. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Strong.
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch.
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Mayor Martin.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Item number 26, City Manager update on current city activities. Is there anything we haven't talked about tonight that you can cover, sir?
I was just going to say, I think I'll save my words. We've covered a lot of ground with all the updates. I think we're fine.
Very good. Thank you. Council Business Committee reports. Mr. Gregory.
I was fortunate enough to go down to the League of Cities conference, and I wanted to thank the people of Paso Robles and the council for letting me go down. Very informative. I even got to see our own city attorney in action, and it was very rewarding and one of the most knowledgeable and learning conferences that I've been to, covering anywhere from PERS to surplus land acts and budgeting and, of course, ethics. So thank you for that privilege. Had a good time and I learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Meetings that I attended since we last met was the Nascimento Commission, Airport Commission. Neither of those had anything really to report. We also went to the Cal City League of Cities there in Long Beach, attending many sessions. I think it was over 9 that I went to, and very educational. And also being able to see Elizabeth in action was very important too. Last week we had IWMA. Again, there was nothing really to report there. Our new executive director's definitely doing well and definitely getting in the seat there and making things happen. I also have, I guess now it's APCD is next week too. So currently that's all I have to report. And I do have a request at the end of the meeting, Mr. Mayor, when we're ready.
Thank you. Councilman Strong.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I was at the League of Cities also for only one day, though. And during that day, we accomplished a tremendous amount. I've initiated a proposal through the League to start emphasizing with our State Department of Education, as well as through our individual cities, to get municipal law or municipal government included in the high school curriculum civics portion. So where they currently only learn state and federal, they need to know that municipalities are corporations, not constitutional government, and that we function differently. And it's important for our citizens to know that. The only way our citizens can know that is if they learn it somewhere along the line in their education. And high school seems to be the appropriate place. The other thing was that we made some very good contacts to help us with some of our grant applications that we make. And we were able to talk to a couple of the people who sat on one of those state commissions and at least make them aware of the importance of some of our projects. So there are a lot of benefits from that brief one day I was there. But I came back the next day to sit in on the Library Board of Trustees meeting. where Angelica announced that they are currently interviewing for her replacement as our chief head librarian. And she was very hopeful that they would find a very good one, and she could devote the rest of her time to being the supervisor over that and our Parks and Recreation area. So I'm real pleased that that's moving ahead. They were finalizing their goals and priorities for this coming year and did an excellent job, and also shared the statistics on how they're doing, which means we are doing great. The public is supporting our library better than they ever have. It's amazing the amount of people that are going to the library and participating in programs and the number of programs that we have at the library. And the other meetings that I had scheduled were all postponed to another time. So that turned out to be it, except for a lot of involvement with citizens, as I think all of us have, where we have to get involved and pay attention to some of their problems and help them in the ways that we legally can, and hopefully within the policies of the city as well. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Dowd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too was fortunate to attend Cal City, so thank you very much to the city of Paso Robles and the citizens for allowing me that opportunity. I spent most of that time doing some mandatory new city council member training, such as ethics, harassments, how to play nice with my fellow council members, was updated on Brown Act by our attorney, Elizabeth Hall. I think one of the best sessions I was able to attend that wasn't training oriented was supporting our small businesses, and hope to bring something back to Chamber and to Main Street for that. This past week, I have been spending an awful lot of time onboarding with our city staff, so thank you very much to everyone who's helped me out with that. I'm sometimes a slow student learning some of this, but I will make good progress. I attended a chamber mixer at Idler's last week. I attended Main Street's Taste of Downtown on Saturday. Both of those events are always great, highly recommended. Once I've been assigned to my committees, I hope to bring back some more meaningful reports.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Been a busy time since our last meeting. I was also at the Chamber Mixer. I also attended the Airport Commission meeting out at the airport. I also had a meeting over the last couple of weeks with principals from ACI Jet. They're making plans for more intensive use of our airport, and we had a conversation about that and what that means for the future of the airport and the operations. We really seem to be broadening our view of our airport and its utilization and its potentials for the future. That's evidenced to a great degree by the number of people and the different types of people that are approaching us about using the airport. We had a really nice presentation here in this room by our library folks on the space program, a little bit of history, a little bit of education about satellites, and had the opportunity to speak to about 50 people of the public about potential plans for a spaceport in Paso Robles, how that would affect our community, and that was very positive. Visited Dave McHugh's send-off party. Was wishing him well again as he heads off to retirement. Volunteered to help with Paso Cares on their pop-up cooling station during that week of brutal heat we had, passing out water and fruit to people that were having a difficult time enduring that. Also attended the Cal Cities Conference, sat in for Mr. Strong as a voting delegate on the board, and I'm happy to say that I was sworn in as a Cal Cities Board of Directors member, which may not mean a lot to a lot of folks, but it's really pretty significant, and I'm very proud to have been named to that. So I'm looking forward to working with the league on that level, and along with Fred and all the connections he has with the committees at the state level to benefit our entire area. Also at that conference, I met with the principal of Dawn Aerospace, one of the companies that is interested in using the Paso Robles Airport as a spaceport facility when and if we receive our spaceport license. That was a very interesting conversation. I attended several workshops, including workshops on cannabis, Surplus Land Act, innovative pilot program processes, and also attended the Channel Counties Division reception for the 25 cities of the Channel Counties Division. We had the mayor's lunch again here in Paso Robles. We celebrated the Paso Walk Market downtown. attended 2 meetings of the Homeless Services Oversight Committee during the last week. Today, I met with members of our staff and the Resilience Roadmap Consulting Team that's working with REACH for Regional Economic Development. Again, we talked about Spaceport. We talked about the fact that this is not just a Paso Robles project. This is a project that holds great promise of economic development for our entire county and, in fact, several counties around us, and looking to build a cadre of allies to help back that process so that as we move forward, that we have partners to share in the responsibilities and costs of making that a reality in the future. I attended the Travel Paso Board of Directors meeting this afternoon, and on October the 28th coming up, we have a Channel Counties Division dinner for the League of California Cities. Those 25 cities I mentioned will be represented right here in Paso Robles. Our featured speaker that night will be the State Treasurer Fiona Ma. Over the last week, outside of the city, working with our sister city, our North County partner in Atascadero, I was happy for the 11th season to work with them in their charity fundraiser, Dancing with Our Stars. It's an annual event that brings local people together in a dance competition, a very colorful, energetic evening. They had to postpone it 4 times over the last 2 years because of COVID, and they finally got it off the ground again this year. We raised funds for Friends of the Atascadero Library, North County Leadership, Templeton Library, Atascadero Performing Arts Center, which is being planned in that city, the Charles Paddock Zoo, and the Atascadero Canine Foundation. I was very proud to play a small part in raising over $200,000 for those charities through Dancing with Our Stars. Before announcing upcoming meetings, I believe Mr. Hammond has something else to add.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to make a motion here with full respect and sadness to make a motion to close our meeting tonight in memoriam of 2 fellow aviators, Paso Robles aviators and friends of mine, Sherman Smoot and Aaron Hogue. Both were lost from aviation accidents in recent days and weeks. They were both passionate Roblins. Sherman Smoot serving Australia Warbirds for many, many years, and Aaron Hogue, a longtime business owner and employer here in Paso Robles. And they both are going to be missed, and I think we should give our condolences to the families and wish them all the best and be with them in their loss.
And I'll second that. Great.
So, Councilman, I'm going to ask you to make that motion in just a moment after I make these announcements, please.
Surely.
Upcoming events, Planning Commission meeting Tuesday, September 27th, 6:30 p.m. Our City Council meeting will be Tuesday, October the 4th, 6:30 p.m. Deadline for submitting items for the regular meeting on Tuesday, October the 4th is Wednesday, September the 21st. And John, if you'd make that motion, I would appreciate it.
So moved for Sherman Smoot and Aaron Hogue, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Hammond, second by Councilman Strong. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. We are adjourned, and our thoughts and prayers are with the families of those who have lost their lives. Thank you.